Hello and welcome to the Orthodox View, where we discuss latest religious news from an Orthodox Christian perspective. I am its host, Philip Champion. Many Italians are allegedly leaving the Roman Catholic Church. The Italian Union of Atheists and Agnostics offers detailed instructions on what to do to no longer be a member of the Catholic Church. According to the Union of Atheists, more than 100,000 people have already renounced their faith. What are the reasons why those people had left the Church? Well, some are struggling with the Roman Catholic theological dogmas, whereas others disagree with the Vatican's stance on moral issues. Those people are not happy with the position of the Church on civil marriage, abortions, euthanasia, and LGBT community. In the Vatican, they say that there can be no ritual of canceling baptism. The sacrament has no reverse effect. However, those who have officially renounced the Catholic Church can no longer receive the sacraments, become godparents, or have a church funeral service. Interestingly enough, in 2020, an Italian sociologist Francesco Garelli conducted a large study funded by the Conference of Catholic Bishops of Italy, which concluded that 30% of the Italian population are atheists. That's about 18 million people. Priest Alfredo Scaroni confirms that more and more people are moving away from the Church. According to him, if more than 15% of population comes to Sunday Mass, that is already an achievement. Metropolitan Elpidophoros, the head of the Constantinople Archdiocese in America, has recently outlined the course of Constantinople towards the unification of the Orthodox and Catholic churches. During a speech at a meeting of Catholic bishops in Baltimore, Metropolitan Elpidophoros quoted the words of Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople and said the following: "The 20th century was the time for a growing restoration of relations, while the 21st century must be a century of restoration of unity." On his own behalf, the hierarch said that the dialogue of love between our fraternal churches is a clear manifestation of our desire for unity and communion. Earlier, another bishop of Constantinople, Metropolitan Polycarp of Italy, said in an interview with the Vatican's official newspaper that, I quote, "The path of Catholics and Orthodox Christians to complete unity is approaching the finish line." The so-called Archbishop of the schismatic organization of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, Nestor Pisik, admitted to the failure of the program to transfer believers from the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. On November 16th, in an interview with the Noviny Ternopil region newspaper, the hierarch complained that he did not expect the slowed-down process of people's transition to the OCU to intensify in the near future. He noted that the reason for this is the indifference of the people. In addition, Nestor Pisik spoke about the skeptical attitude towards the OCU on the part of the Romanian Orthodox Church, which has not recognized the Ukrainian schismatics. Such a revelation contradicts the statement of the head of the schismatics, Epifani Dumenko, who in October this year promised a large-scale wave of voluntary transitions. By the way, the persona of Dumenko as the head of the OCU may also be one of the reasons for the non-recognition of schismatics by a number of local churches. For instance, the Bishop of the Church of Cyprus, Metropolitan Athanasius of Limassol, has recently once again emphasized that Sergei Dumenko is not even a priest, but just a layman dressed in episcopal vestments. In the opinion of Metropolitan Athanasius, other hierarchs of the Church adhere to the same point of view. On November 17th, the U.S. State Department published a list of states in which freedom of religion is violated. The blacklist includes 10 countries, including Russia, Myanmar, China, Eritrea, Iran, North Korea, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. What's interesting, however, is that the situation with religious freedoms in Ukraine, where the canonical church is persecuted daily, went unnoticed by the State Department. Unlike the American department, the UN Human Rights Committee did recognize the fact of violation of the rights of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. The committee expressed its concern about the police inaction and demanded that the authorities would protect believers from violence and discrimination. So far, this appeal has been ignored. For instance, on November 18th, the Ukrainian police moved from inaction to lawlessness. In the village of Bakhtin in western Ukraine, instead of protecting the parishioners and priests of the canonical church, law enforcement officers helped the schismatics to seize the church building. The Greek news source Pentapostagma paid attention to the recently held theological forum in Kiev dedicated to the topic of schism and conciliarity in Orthodoxy. Let me remind you that at that conference, representatives of 7 local churches, theologians, historians, scholars of religion, and philosophers discussed the church crisis in Ukraine caused by the actions of Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople. The Greek information resource noted the main point of the conference. The Patriarchate of Constantinople refuses to bring painful issues of church life to the conciliar discussion, and a way out of the crisis of orthodoxy is possible only in a conciliar manner. At the same time, the Greek journalist noted that even though Patriarch Bartholomew quite often speaks of his own leadership, many theologians tend to doubt that he correctly understands the term primacy of honor, which does not give him authority and power over other local Orthodox churches. Pentapostagma stressed that the only way for the world orthodoxy to resolve this crisis would be through a pan-Orthodox discussion of the Ukrainian issue. In the United States, after years of litigation, a legal agreement had been reached between a gay couple and a woman florist. An American Christian woman will have to pay up to $5,000 in compensation for religious refusal to decorate a so-called gay wedding. The story began in 2013, when Rob Ingersoll asked Baronel Stutzman to take part in organizing his wedding ceremony with another man. The florist, referring to her Christian beliefs, refused. Ingersoll and his partner viewed this as discrimination and went to court. In 2015, a Washington court sentenced the florist to a $1,000 fine, while the gay couple filed applications with several other U.S. courts. The lawyers who represented the woman persuaded her to end the lawsuit and try to reconcile, paying a significant amount of compensation. In her statement, the 77-year-old florist said that she never went against her faith, did not seek a compromise with her conscience, and thanked God for his support in the trials of recent years. The 20th of November marks the 75th anniversary of His Holiness Patriarch Kirill of Moscow and all Russia. On behalf of the Orthodox view, we cordially congratulate the Patriarch on his birthday and would like to share 10 interesting facts about him. The grandfather of the future Patriarch was a deeply religious person who raised 7 children and adopted a daughter. He would frequently donate part of his earnings to monasteries. After the revolution, he actively fought against the closure of churches, for which he was exiled to the camp in Solovki. In total, he spent 18 years of his life in the Gulag camps. Upon his return, he was ordained and became a clergyman in the Russian Orthodox Church. The father of the future Patriarch also chose the path of service to God and his church. However, after graduating from the higher theological courses in Leningrad, he was noticed by the state secret services. After entering the Leningrad Industrial Institute, he was accused of political disloyalty, arrested, and sent to Kolyma. After the war, he was ordained a priest. Immediately after secondary school, in the wake of Khrushchev's persecution of the church, future Patriarch Kirill entered the Leningrad Theological Seminary. Then he entered the Leningrad Theological Academy, from which he graduated with honors. At 23, he was tonsured a monk. A year later, he defended his PhD thesis in theology. Patriarch Kirill became the youngest rector of the Leningrad Theological Academy. He was just 28 years old. In 1978, for the first time in the history of the Russian Church, future Patriarch opened in the Leningrad Theological Academy a class for Orthodox girls and introduced physical education lessons for seminarians. In 1984, future Patriarch was relieved of his post as rector of the Leningrad Theological Academy and Seminary and transferred to the provincial department in Smolensk. The reason for this was his disagreement with the Soviet involvement in Afghanistan. During his ministry in the Smolensk diocese, future Patriarch Kirill not only revived the Orthodox community there, but actually created parish life from scratch in the westernmost region of Russia, the Kaliningrad region. Having become the primate of the Russian Orthodox Church, His Holiness had formed an active charity agenda of Russian Orthodox parishes. At each church, a compulsory position of a social worker has been introduced. Patriarch Kirill is the author of the program for construction of 200 churches within walk-in distance in residential areas of Moscow. The list of interesting facts about Patriarch Kirill could go on for much longer, but we have decided to end it with fact number 10. Patriarch Kirill is an adherent of dog-friendly culture. He even said the following, I quote, "I love dogs very much and have always had several of them. We must love animals because by showing love for animals we train our human emotions and become more human." Whether one is a cat person or a dog person, it's difficult not to appreciate this approach from the Patriarch. Well, this is all for now. Thank you for watching and see you next time on The Orthodox View.